Hi, my name is Al D. I am the founder of MBA Schooled, which is your place to come to learn about the MBA experience and get best practices for whether you're applying to business school or whether you're in business school in trying to improve your MBA experience. I am going to talk today about 6 ways that you can maximize your MBA experience. And this is going to be a great way for whether you're a prospective MBA student and wondering how can you get started right away to achieve your goals faster, or if you're a current MBA student who wants to just accelerate the learning that you're doing in school. And so I'm going to share 6 ways that you can actually go and do that. If you want to know a little bit more about me, feel free to check out mbaschool.com. You can find me on Twitter, and then you can certainly email me if you have any questions. And if you're wondering where I'm getting this research from and how I'm coming up with this, make sure to check out MBA Insider, which is the book I wrote to learn how you can make the most of your MBA experience. So today I'm going to share with you 6 lessons. And these were things that you can put into practice right away. They're incredibly actionable and practical. And they actually come from real MBA students and alum that I've interviewed and I've researched on. And so let's take a look at what these are and learn how you can apply them into your own MBA experience. So here we go. Let's start with number 1, which is chart your own course. The idea behind this is that the only race that matters is the race that you're running with yourself. You're going to be most successful when you align yourself to the path that is yours, that is uniquely yours. And I think this is really important because I think we all go to business school and we do our homework in terms of being able to look at the best practices and being able to look at others who have gone before us and learning the lessons before that they have learned and kind of taking them and putting them into practice. And that's all well and good. But I think it's important to remember that the only race that you're running is the race you're running with yourself. And when you start to think about how you can pursue things that align with the experiences that you want, I think you'll find the most success, and I think you'll find the most fulfillment when you do it. And I love this quote from Jasmine Ako, who's featured in my book, who talks about the situations where she thrived the most when she pursued activities that were aligned to her, and you just kind of felt right. So what does that mean? So I think that means 2 things. Number 1, you want to ask yourself, what are my own metrics for success? Right? It may seem like a simple question, but I think you'd be surprised by how many people don't ask this question, and they don't do it until it's too late. I think the second question you want to ask yourself at any given time is, what do I want to feel like at the end of this experience, right? When it's all over, how do I want to make sure that I feel excited about that I did everything I could in the time that I had? And if you need something to do, number 1, go revisit your MBA application. Go look at the things that you wrote down that you said you wanted to do and see how you're going to actualize them. And if you didn't, make sure to write those goals down right now and start making sure that you progressively periodically check in on them to make sure you're progressing against them. Okay, so this next lesson is called Turn Strengths into Opportunities. This is all about figuring out what your superpower is and using it to contribute, whether it's for yourself or whether it's for your peers. One of the great things about business school is that when you go to business school, everyone has their own strengths that they're bringing to the table. That's why schools go and design a class that is diverse and brings people of different backgrounds because they have different skills and experiences that are valuable. And so with this is all about figuring out what your strengths are and then figuring out how to use them each and every day. And I love this quote from Ben Thayer, who's also an MBA insider. And he talks about how putting your strengths to use allows you to teach, to learn, and to build relationships with others. And this doesn't just help you, but it helps others as well. I think the best thing that you can do is to think about what are your strengths and how you can actually use these to add value to a team or to your group. And I think this is important for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's going to be helpful to everyone else who's involved in working with you. And MBA, business school in general, is a lot about group projects and group teams. But I think the other thing that you're going to find is that when you use this mindset and when you use this approach of really thinking about how you can help other people, you're going to have more than enough opportunities come your way. And you're going to find that people are going to want to work alongside you and work along with you. If you're not sure how to get started on this, if you don't know what those strengths are, get some feedback on what those are. You can take things like StrengthsFinder or Deloitte's Business Chemistry or MBTI or whatever it is, or you can simply go ask your colleagues, go ask your friends, hey, what is a strength of mine? And when do you see it in action? And then you can start to think about, well, how might I be able to contribute that if I'm a current student, like right now on my team or on my project? Or if I'm a prospective student, I might be thinking about how might I be able to contribute to the class in a meaningful way. The third lesson is this idea around being able to allocate your time to your priorities. Time is your most valuable asset, and now is the time to learn how to allocate it. I think it's easy to get FOMO or fear of missing out in business school because of the fact that there's always something to be done, and there's so many different activities that you could be doing that when you're not doing something that you because you're doing something else, it's only natural to think that you're missing out on something. It's kind of like in college, or when there's that big party that you don't get invited to, you can't go because you have a test, and you think, oh my gosh, it's the only party that's ever going to happen. Well, that's just not true. We all knew that. There was always another party down the road. But in this case, it's the same. And I think the thing that you need to think about is that there will be endless opportunities for you to explore in business school, but you only have a certain amount of hours in a day. And so how do you think about how you prioritize those activities that you do decide to do in a way that aligns to what your values are or what your priorities are? And one of the quotes I love from Jordan Nichols is this idea of, instead of FOMO, think of JOMO, or this idea of the joy of missing out. And it's just the acknowledgement that you're not going to be able to do everything. But when you choose not to do something, it means you're acknowledging that you're choosing to do something else. And when you do something else, you should take pride in knowing that that is something that you want to do. And it's okay not to be able to do everything. So some questions to think about. If you are a prospective student, I would think about, what are my priorities? If you're a current student, I would think about, what did I say no to this week? Is there anything that I said no to this week? And then something that you can do is you can actually write down your priorities and rank them. You can put together a decision-making framework to really help you think about, how am I going to prioritize certain activities or the others? And certainly, finally, you can do a calendar audit where you literally go through your calendar to figure out, how did I spend my time this week? Is it aligned in the way that I want it to be? And just as an example for a priority framework, I want to give you one. So there's often, kind of said, there's like 3 or 4 main components of business school, and you can only do so many of these well at any given time, and you can only allocate so much time to each of these things. And so those kind of commitments are your recruiting and career, your academics, your social, and your extracurricular. It's really hard to do everything in all of these buckets. You're only going to be able to do a few. But this is just an example of how you can think about how you can prioritize your own time and your own priorities in business school. Okay. This next lesson is this idea of becoming a lifelong learner. Business school is not going to be the only time you're going to learn. You're actually going to be learning for the rest of your career. And so now is actually a great time to practice and learn the art of learning, or learning how to learn. I think this is one of the most important lessons in business school, because if you can learn this and you can apply it in business school, you're going to be well positioned for the rest of this career. I think we all starting to realize, particularly through some of the past year that we've been through, that technology as well as uncertainty can often change the landscape that we operate in each and every day. And so it's important to be able to constantly be and continuously be learning, so that we will always remain to stay relevant. And I think business school is a great place to do this. The whole point of being in an environment of higher education is to learn and to push yourself to grow. And just like Katie Block-Ellington said here, in this idea of being able to take on stretch opportunities, she was able to learn and grow in ways that she couldn't imagine. And I think the key lesson for her is that she never wants to stop learning. For most of you, the things you do after business school will not be the things you do for the rest of your career, actually for all of you. And so at some point, you're going to have to evolve and learn and continuously grow. And so if you can learn the process of learning how to do that, or if you can build skills in school that will help you continuously be able to identify new skills and then to go and build them, you will always probably find career opportunities in your future. So a couple things to ask yourself. Number one, how do you learn best? For some people, it's being in the class, right? And being with other students. For others of you, it's about taking action and working on a project or putting skills into place. Think about how you can learn. I also would think about, at the end of each week, really ask yourself, what did you learn this week? Or ask yourself, when did you feel uncomfortable this week? And I love this question because we often learn from the experiences that are hard or that are difficult. And so if we're finding that we're getting some of these in our daily our weekly schedule, it means we're pushing ourselves. For those of you who have time right now, I would start to think about what are the skills that you want to develop, right? What are those things that you know you want to build while you're in school? That way you can make sure you can go and do them. Okay, this next lesson is this idea of experiment and take risks. Ginny Rometty, the former CEO of IBM, used to say, growth and comfort don't go hand in hand. And I think that's really true. Business school, and one of the things about it that makes it unique is that you have a safe zone with lots of resources and people to test ideas, to try things, to learn, and then to fail in a safe space and safe environment. And I love this quote from Colin Keeler, who talks about not trying something in a safe space with lots of resources is a bigger risk than failing. And for Colin, that meant actually going out and starting his own business when he was in business school, something he never intended to do. But he realized is that this was a great space to do it. He had plenty of resources. He had plenty of opportunities to get feedback. He had plenty of alum to network with, to get guidance and advice. And this was really a great space for him to go and do that thing. And so for all of you, I think one thing to remember is that you will never be in another space again in your career where you will have not only the time and energy to take risks and try things, but being surrounded by a community of people who are going to be there to support you while you go through that experience. So a couple of questions to ask yourself. What's something you wanted to do, but you were too afraid to do it? And that business school could be the time to go and do that. And then the other thing I would think about is, what are some quick things you can do to go try something and just to get some feedback to see how it went? Those small kind of steps can be really actionable and can kind of push you in new directions, particularly when you're exploring things that you're curious about. Okay, this next lesson is this idea around investing in relationships. And it's being able to take advantage of the incredible talent and people that are surrounded, that you're going to be surrounded by. I think most people go to business school because of the power of the network, right? These are the people that you're going to be graduating with and associated with for the rest of your career. And I think that's something that most of us want when we apply to business school in the first place. But it's one thing to want it. In order for you to take advantage of it, you actually need to actionalize on it and really actually put it to work. So I love this quote from Dave Rokich, a FICO MBA alum from the class of 2015, who talks about the best experiences he had in business school were when he was working with other people, being around other people, traveling around the world, working with them while doing recruiting. That was what made his experience as rich as it was. The business school environment is so unique because you are in one place with lots of people who all are around kind of the same kind of career stage as you in a lot of ways. And you have a chance to go on the journey with them, to work together, to learn from and with them. But that only happens when you take the time to go and invest in the relationships that you have. So what I would think about if I were you is to think about, questions like, what are the ways in which I can build relationships with others? For some of you, this is going to be in class. For some of you, it's going to be in clubs and activities. For some of you, it's going to be in social events. But it's going to vary person to person. And certainly, many of you have other commitments that are going on that may make it a little bit harder to continuously build relationships. So think about who are the people and ways in which you can actually build these. For example, for me, one of the things I loved doing in business school was I used to have Taco Tuesdays and invite classmates over to get to know them a little bit better, to get to know their families a little bit better. That was one of the ways that I invested in relationships. And the way to kind of take action on this and to think about how can I actually make this happen is to go and identify some activities that excite you. And then also start thinking about what skills or experiences can you share with other people, right? For me, it was food. For you, it could be maybe something you know how to do or a skill that you have. Those are all different ways in which you can kind of find ways to invest in relationships and share with others. Okay, the sixth and final lesson is this idea of practicing self-awareness and reflection. Business school is a great time if you haven't done a lot of this, or even if you have, but it gives you the time and space to truly get to know yourself. Business school really does give you that moment where you can pause and reflect, and you should take advantage of that. And just for context, for those of you who are following along at home, self-awareness is kind of like be defined as the knowledge that you acquire that relates to the different facets of your personality, including your strengths, your weaknesses, beliefs, and motivations. And self-reflection is the process of making space to generate that awareness. But ideally, you want to be able to do both, right? Like you want to make space to do the reflection that will enable you to become more aware. And I love this quote from Shannon Greaser, who is also featured in my book, where she says, in a world that moves so fast and work that demands so much of our time and mental energy, business school allows you to pause and think about who you are, what you're good at, and how you can make an impact on the world in a meaningful way. That's a really thoughtful quote there from Shannon. I know her personally, she's a very thoughtful person. But it's just this idea that you really do have the chance to do and achieve what you want. And business school is going to be an accelerant to help you do that. But you should think about how that you want to see that. How can you kind of work towards your goals when you're in school? And what can you kind of do to make sure that along the way and along your journey, you're taking the time to every now and then pause, reflect on what you're doing, and think about how you can do it better, how you can do it differently, what you've learned in the process. Making this time, I think, is critical. And for some of you, it's going to be a formal thing where maybe you do need a calendar invite every month just to take 30 minutes to journal. For others, it can be a little bit more organic. I know Shannon, I talked to her when I wrote this book. She talked about how she did have a journal, and she didn't need to formally do it every month, but every now and then when she would pause, just drop everything she was doing and turn off all her phones and just make time just to think and write down what she had learned, how she felt she was progressing, what she thought she was doing well. And that really helped kind of put her on the path to making sure she was spending the time she wanted in the way that she wanted. So what are some questions that you can ask yourself when you do this reflection? I would start thinking about, what stories best illustrate my skills and strengths, right? When did I show up this week and do a really good job? I would think about, what's something I know I could have done better, but I chose not to do better, and how can I correct that, right? And then the other thing you can do is to really think about how you can do this on a more regular basis. And if you're someone who needs to kind of put time on the calendar, go and do that. But if you're someone who does this organically, that's great too. Okay, so those are the 6 ways that you can make the most of your MBA experience. I hope this was helpful to you in terms of understanding what you can do to help make sure that you achieve everything that you want to achieve in business school. Whether you're a current student looking to make even more of the experience, or you're a prospective student wondering how you can get set up in the right way, I think these lessons and some of the actions and questions that I've given you can be put into practice to make sure you can maximize the MBA experience. And if you're really looking for more guidance on how you can maximize the MBA experience, make sure to check out my book, MBA Insider, How to Make the Most of the MBA Experience. You can learn from like all the people I featured in this presentation, like Shannon or David or anyone else. Their stories are in MBA Insider, as well as plenty of real world examples and lessons from over 60 current and former MBA students on how to navigate and achieve your goals in business school. So make sure to check out MBA Insider on Amazon. And finally, if you're looking for more research on business school in general, make sure to head over to mbaschool.com. We have plenty of great resources for all of you to learn how you can make the most of your MBA experience. Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope this was helpful, and best of luck.